Hello, my brethren. I hope you're all well. Today I want to talk about male friendship and how it has changed over the years. Today's men, including myself, seem to have forgotten their ways. I mean, in part, we are the animal that we were before, but in part, we have also changed. Yes, we have been shamed, and we have been imprisoned in a society that cares only about what we produce. But I believe there is a bit of truth when old people say that they no longer see any real men around. And we have talked about what real men means in the context of gynocentrism, in the context of shaming, that kicks us back into subjugation and submission. But that is not the context in which I'm using this phrase. And I believe the old men, the grandfathers, the people who have fought wars, the genuinely old and wise men, do not wish you to be harmed or subjugated, and they understand above everyone else the changes that have occurred with today's women. They understand it, and they know too well that if they were young, they would feel the same. Yet they say that today's men act like women. They have no pride, they have no honor, they have no spine. They use trickery, manipulation in games, and they don't speak a sentence without trying to gain something from someone else. And I'm guilty of this myself, and I long thought that this phrase was bullshit, that these old people do not understand what I'm experiencing and what I'm living, that the technological revolution has passed over them and has not touched them in any way. Yet as we grow older as men, we find ourselves walking closer to the path of our fathers. I find myself even enjoying the disgusting foods of my childhood that only my father used to eat. I find them appetizing and nice. And that old saying that there is no real man, it started to bother me. It started to bother me because I was not aware of the truthfulness of it until I started observing the people around me. This is not an attack on you, my brothers, or to any of the men around. I'm just making observations, and I try to look at it through the eyes of my grandfather, through the eyes of my neighbor next door. I try to see the reasons as to why we may have started into morphing into an almost female-like behavior. And why is that phrase bothering me? Why do I think that old man telling me this wants me to notice something extraordinary, but I seem to be missing the point? Suspend your disbelief, gentlemen. Enable yourselves to listen. Expect from me that I'm not going to try to invade your thoughts to imprint my morals and ideas on them. Better yet, just listen and leave your questions for the pauses in between of what I'm saying. Because I'm simply thinking of this as I'm typing it. I sat down some time ago with my grandfather, and the conversation has recently come back to me, and I was trying to understand what were the reasons of why he kept telling me that there is no real men around. You see, I always thought that he meant sacrifice, that he meant fight for a cause, and I never wanted to engage in that conversation with him. But I wanted to give the old man a chance. He raised me and taught me so much. Most of the things that caused me physical damage as a child came from his shed. A shed that I was allowed to roam free in, and he considered it to be like a valuable lesson in my life. It appears that old man's observations were founded on the fact that men don't form any real bonds with each other anymore. He said that when he was younger, he worked every day for bread and butter. He wasn't American, by the way, or British, so he actually did have to work for just that. He married very late, in his mid-30s, which was unheard of at the time. He worked on his own and lived alone and did well for his time, yet he told me that he would go hungry and get the family of a friend of his something to eat. He would go hungry to help a friend in need, so that he wouldn't go to prison. He didn't have cigarettes to smoke at times because he would be out of money, yet he would always find something to smoke, as the cigarettes of one were the cigarettes of everyone. In sweat and blood and tears, all the men lived and worked together. They shared, they acquired, and they lived together. Their families, their homes, they were open as one home. His brothers were his brothers and his friends were twice his brothers. You see, you can't choose your blood, but you can choose your friends. And if you have not gone through some incredible shit in your life, that male bond with each other never flourishes. That male compassion, that male empathy, which encompasses your friend as your own blood, never actually happens. If you talk to soldiers, people who fought in war, they can tell you how it was like when they were out there. They couldn't think of their friends as anything other but brothers. Their families were their families. Their mothers and fathers were their fathers. And you might have not even met those people. You might have never known who they were until you walked through their front door to meet up with them. And you only knew these people through the stories that your mate told you. My grandfather said that the men of today would perish if something big was to happen. We were too weak, too used to living in our living rooms, walking to and back from the supermarket. We created nothing from scratch and learned to make absolutely nothing. We did not have to scrape the bottom of the pan to find food, and there was nothing there. We were comfortable, yet we all seemed to hate ourselves. We had everything, yet we seemed to lack any real friends. We had phones and lines of communication to the edge of the world, and yet we seemed unable to find any friendship from 7 billion people on the planet. To him it seemed that, as men, we had everything, and from that we were able to create nothing. Everything was there for us from the beginning. What was easy for them is now difficult for us, and what was difficult for them is now easy for us. Yet we seemed so unhappy to him. At no point did my grandfather care about the females in our lives. My grandfather seemed to be unhappy by the state of our souls, of our brains, of our very existence, because he fought so hard so that we could have it easy, his children and his grandchildren. Yet he seemed sad because he knew it wasn't all material stuff. It wasn't all about money. Money, I mean, sure, it's important. Without any, he would have starved himself. But his life used to be his work. He worked and he had his friends, his comrades, his brothers with him. And he brought those brothers in his life until he formed a family. And even then, they were still around him. They would still visit him, and he would visit them. And he spent time with just the boys, with just the lads, and he would be happy even with a moaning wife in his house. The woman, he used to tell me, was the beginning of all male unhappiness. But these men, these people that he called his friends, they were all unhappy together. He seemed to wonder how we could possibly handle another miserable person in our lives when we were already miserable. So he used to tell me, don't marry until you have people that you can escape to. My grandfather might as well have been the very first version of MGTOW. And I think a lot of the men of his generation were just the same. And he's right. It's not that we don't deserve women or that we can't handle women. We're miserable in our lives. Adding a woman to the mix only makes the matter worse. The Western world is the loneliest place on the planet. It is a master illusion in creating friendships. I mean, check out my 1,000 Facebook friends, of whom I hang out with just the 2. It is a pit where cultures mix and yet they hate each other. Very few people accept other people's cultures, and I mean truly accept them. Go to these people for dinner, hang out with them, play with them, make fun of them, fucking making racist jokes towards these people cultures. Few people are truly even comfortable with other people, and very few people ever speak their minds. There's always fucking political correctness police around. And the male fucking spirit that built everything around us, that still builds everything around us, has only remained a utility, and it has more or less died. It is no longer admired and cherished, and expressed in its purest, angriest, funniest, and best of forms. The biggest thing with MGTOW is that I can come here and say whatever the fuck I want. I can speak my mind and let it rip into people's heads, whether they like it and whether they don't. I'm free here. And it's sad, it's fucking sad that I have to resort to an online community to be able to be free. It's sad that the male spirit has not been allowed to roam free. And I think that the society of today has shown us that men are not dangerous. Yet it is the men who have nowhere to go, the men who feel trapped, that end up attacking and breaking away and cause damage in the process. It is not free men who do that. It is not men who have at least one reason to live. But slowly and surely, the Western society has taken away every reason from us. So we are trying very hard to create new reasons in order to live. And worst of all, my grandfather, he was right. Men are unhappy. There is no spark in their eyes. There is no dreams when you talk to them. Our dreams, if we do have them, are complex, unachievable, and at times unrealistic. And through all this, we do give up. Men used to give up all the time. Seriously, they used to give up left and right. My grandfather was wrong in saying that the old men were a different animal to us. They weren't. They just had support. On their lowest of lows, they had friends. They had people that would pick them up, give them a helping hand, and push them forward, even for a tiny bit of time, even for as long as they could. And that's nowhere to be found in today's society. We have all become coy and untrusting to our fellow men. And rightly so. I mean, there is simps, manginas, and Captain Save-A-Ho out there. Actually, they are the majority of what is out there. We, in actual fact, have majority blue pill friends in our real lives. Yet you love them, don't you? You disagree with them in a lot of ways, yet you still love them. Imagine how much your bond would have strengthened if you were in need of each other. If you truly needed and supported each other. If you were truly there for one another. But as men, we don't truly need someone until it's too late. And then we end up finding friendships in the unlikeliest of places where we never expected to. And I don't want you to just imagine this. I mean, I bet some commenters have actually served in the army and they can tell me stories that I would find extremely homoerotic yet amazing. True male friendship crossing lines that will never be spoken in front of a female or men who don't get it. That is the power of male compassion and empathy. Men will stick up for their friends when there is truly a need. I truly believe that males have vast amounts of empathy. And the reason why I believe this is because we might not get on with everyone, but the people that we do get on with, the people we understand and feel like they could be us, they could be, our friends, our fathers, our mothers, our brothers and our sisters, you help them. You feel their pain and that springs you into action. We take risks to help people and we don't do it always for female approval. And we don't even say it to anyone. We do it just because. We do it just because we could feel that man's pain. Imagine that this ability does not just exist in you. Imagine that that ability exists in other people as well. Imagine that ability in people who have gone through the same shit that you have. Imagine that you exist as a part in a community that's full of people like that. And yes, we have our disagreements, and yes, we show our teeth to each other. We argue, and I believe at some point we might even fight with each other. But what a great place this is to find similar-minded people with similar morals, experiences, and pain. And you can't help but feel empathy towards these people. You can't help but feel a connection. And yeah, at times that bond breaks. At times you want to walk away from a lot of those people. And it's okay. Yet I have learned to never lose faith in this. I have learned to suspend my disbelief and hope that I will meet people with truth, a truth similar to mine in their heart, and we can rekindle that long lost male friendship that built the world, that made the society of today a safer place. Because even if we are to lose everything, I think a man could not truly survive and live without some true male friends in his life. Women we could live without, but men we couldn't. And we can reclaim my grandfather's version of manliness if we end up doing that. Through our own independent truth, our own version of masculinity, the masculinity which, if we're truly honest with ourselves, cannot actually vary that much from each other. Thank you very much for listening. This was Nick Wachowski talking about all things man. Please like, share, and of course subscribe to my channel for more updates.